Hey, today I'm doing a little bit of hobbying. I'm making terrain hills. It's something that's very useful to have just a bunch of these for your gaming table. I usually play them as open ground, so you can actually drive over them for your games. But you can play them as rough ground if you want to. Some people are claiming that they should be played even as dense so that you can be seen if you're in the hill, but like for bold action, right? But these are just very useful. I'm making a bunch of these. I'm making like 10. And there'll be two different kinds, one for a winter table which I'm building, and one that's just generic forest thing. Potentially I'll do some that's for the desert at some point. So what I've done is I've cut out using a stick saw. Is that the right word for it? It's the Danish word. I've cut out an MDF, and then on top of that I have glued and had set with wood glue. I glued some XPS foam. Then shaped that down. You can use your hot wire cutter if you've got one of those, or you can use a knife. It takes a little bit more work. And the thing is, you want a smooth, but not too smooth. It has to be a little, because real hills aren't completely smooth. Next thing you want to consider when you're building hills is how steep is it going to be? Because if I take, like, here's one of my little Cossack dudes, right? If I put him down on the hill, can he actually stand up? Or will he at some point just, drop off? So that doesn't work. So you need the right amount of steepness, and it can be a little more than you think because of one trick I'm going to show you in a minute, right? So this is the basic hill, and I've made a bunch of these. So and it's just a matter of doing different shapes. I like them elongated a little bit because real hills have that thing going on where they're not like completely round. They're a bit elongated in most hills, right? And they're way smaller than a natural real hill would be. But, it's just to have them so that you can actually play them on the tabletop. The reason why, by the way, you put MDF below your XPS foam, because XPS is quite hard and rigid. The MDF there is there to protect because the edge gets really thin, right? So the MDF is there to protect the edge so that it doesn't break off and your beautiful work doesn't go away. So that's the first process. Now, then I get out my trusty glue gun, and I get some bark that I've found in the woods nearby. I obsessively collect nature things and just, have them in the oven at 100 Celsius for 20, 30 minutes. They should be okay and not too full of weird stuff. So I use quite a lot of wood bark. I break this up into little bits and then glue them on using hot glue guns. So this is the result from one of my hills. Now, it looks a bit of a mess right now. It will look prettier when I'm done with it. So that's what I'm doing. Now, the next process you can do is to cover all of this in some sort of filler. Right. Wall filler. Just regular wall filler can do that trick. I'm not going to bother with that today because I just want to move on, and I haven't got any filler in my house right now. But you could do that. It will protect the XPS a little bit more, but I'm going to give them another protective layer, which I'll show you in a minute. So that's the next process. After that, you know what? I'll show you how I do the next process. So I'll take this hill, just getting rid of the non-wanted hills, and I'll take my wood glue. This is like super useful stuff, and I'll just slather it all over here. Not too much, but enough that I, with a wet paintbrush, can just move it about a little and make sure everything is a little covered, right? You can already see I've picked out a few stones and placed them down. I'm going to pick out a few more. Now, take a wet paintbrush and just make sure that everything is pretty well covered. And this hill is going to get a couple of layers of different textures on it. So I'm not too fussed about, what goes on right now and how it's looking right now, because it'll get more textures everywhere around this hill. And some of it, I think, will be rubbly, like it's a bit of a rocky outcrop. And some of it will get smoothed down and we'll get grasses on it and stuff. So to start with, I just want to lay down the foundational layer, basically, of the hill. And that needs to be not as smooth as the XPS when I've cut it. This has been cut with my hot wire cutter, right? So it needs to be a little more rough. And to create that roughness, I've got a couple of grit piles, a sand one and a little bit more rocky, gritty one. So now I've covered the whole hill in glue. I'll take a handful of grit, small rocks, and just scatter them about. I want to create some areas that have more rocks, so I'm not like evenly distributing these rocks. I'm doing more in some places and fewer in others, but I do want some to be more or less around the whole thing. I'll also add some wood chippings, like different textures. Like that. Now, the final thing, got this little box of fine beachy sand from the beach where I have my vacation home, and I'll just sprinkle that all over. And stuff will fall off at this point. Oops, I can see I've forgotten one spot here that needs to have glue as well. And it doesn't matter if I go a little bit above and into the rocks here. It will not matter. All of it will get layers upon layers of stuff, as I said, right? Right. That's it. Hill is already coming a lot more together, right? Just with the sand, you can see that, right? And you can do like 3 different levels. I'm doing 2 just because it's what I have right now in my collection for hobby tools. You can do 2 different like textures, 3 different. I think a little bit of difference is a good thing. And at some point when this is painted, you can already see what it's going to look like, can't you? This is going to look really, really cool. It's going to look like a true hill. And because of all these little rocks, it will be a lot easier to place my models down, because the rocks are going to be backstoppers for the models. Once they are on the hill, they can actually be on the hill without sliding off because of the rocks. Clever little trick there. So that's how I make my hills. I've already done quite a few. Here's another one. They're not painted yet. I made sure here to have one side that's rocky, because quite often dirt or sand will pile up against rocks, but it won't like be on both sides. So either the rocks will be in the center of a hill, be sort of what is propping up the highest bit, or they'll just be on one edge. Damn, they look good. I think perhaps I need to do desert, because they already look kind of deserty. So that's my process. That's how I'm working. That's how I build my game table terrain, my hills. Cheers.